Hello, John. You are aboard the spacecraft Odyssey 1.
So I don't know if you heard, but I'll be leaving town soon. 1.5 billion miles. No big deal.
We're awake. Good.
Is hibernation affecting you at all?
Gentlemen, we have been in space for nearly 2 years.
It's incredible.
We are on our way to Titan.
Titan. It's the most Earth-like world we can reach. But to get there, we'll need Jupiter's gravity for a speed boost.
You have 2 more hibernation cycles before the slingshot.
Houston, we have a situation.
The impact represents no real danger.
What if the whole system is compromised? If we attempt a slingshot, we get blasted into deep space.
Baby, the drugs used to induce hibernation can produce side effects.
You understand me now.
She's not here on the ship.
I know that.
If sometimes,
including confusion and disorientation.
you see that I'm mad,
Your imagination is playing a cruel trick on you.
How do you know this?
but I'm just
Everything around us is screaming, turn around!
your touch.
And you're about to blast us even further into space.
Warning, system overload.
Division!
I'm just a soul.
You're sending us all to die!
Flying into the light is a survival instinct. The best escape route tends to be towards the light.
First off, thank you for coming on and giving me this time. So early on, Steffen, I want to know, and I always ask composers this, as a kid, like, who are your, like, was it movies that did it for you? Because I know music obviously has a lot of roots, not just movie related. But for you, where does that come from, the love of music and the love to really do this wonderful craft?
It was definitely movies. I think for me, it was like, as I'm sure for pretty much everybody going to this line of work and my age, are like, yeah, I mean, growing up with especially Spielberg movies, especially stuff like, Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, Hook was a big childhood favorite.
Yeah.
Star Wars, obviously, as well. Those were movies that stood out to me, not just for them being engaging as movies, but also I realized, the music is fantastic. So that was, everybody in my line of work obviously adores John Williams for what he brought to all of us for so many decades now. Such masterful work. That's obviously something that excited me from early on. And then it just kept going. I got more, I think, probably around early teens or so, maybe 12, 13, I started getting more invested in actually filmmaking and just more interested in the overall process of it. So that's how it started for me. Yeah.
Hook is a great call too. That's one I haven't heard, and that's a really good movie with a really good score. Yeah, that's a good call. So early on, what do you do? Like, what instrument do you start with? How does it build for you for there? Like, do you end up going to school, college? How does all that work out for you and shaped kind of to where you are today?
I started early during school. I started playing clarinet. Actually, originally I wanted to play saxophone, but like the big tenor saxophone. But then they were like, "Oh, you should start with, because you always have to carry around like this big ass instrument." So it was like, "Oh, you should move to clarinet." And I was like, "All right, fine. It's much smaller, more handy. Okay, fine." So I did that. Played in small ensembles. Played in my local concert band at home, which was in the south of Germany. And but then during teenage years, it was all about rock music. So it was I started moving to guitar and bass. kind of halfway self-taught. I took some lessons, played in some bands, played bass and jazz combo and all that stuff. So it was a bunch of back and forth. And I think around that time, after a few years, I also started just writing song ideas for like rock songs or singer-songwriter song ideas, but only instrumentals. Like I was never really good with coming up with lyrics, but that's how I think the composing process started for me a little bit. And then later, I tried to move into filmmaking first after school. I tried to become a filmmaker because it's what I really wanted to do. Didn't get into the school I tried getting into, and then pivoted to music eventually.
Yeah,
that's where I got stuck.
Well, you're doing a great job at it. I was thinking about like the way kind of Hans Zimmer works, right? So like Lauren Balfe is kind of his, like they're very close. Like Hans is close to a lot of people, and I feel like you and Lauren have that kind of rapport that Hans and Lauren have. Does that make any sense? Am I accurate with that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely in the sense that the relationship between an upcoming composer and a mentor. I think that's what Hans was for Lauren, in certainly in the sense that he was able to kind of perfect his craft under him.
Right.
And I certainly learned an incredible amount working for Lauren.
Yeah.
For those years. So yeah, I definitely, there's definitely truth to that. Yeah.
Yeah, that Top Gun Maverick, that soundtrack is an amazing one. Oh my goodness! Like people love Top Gun, the newest one, and it's just like, and I know you're a part of that because you're in the music department. There's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of people involved getting that soundtrack right. Like, I mean, I guess that's the case with a lot of movies, but to me, it seems like there was a lot of people really involved. I mean, one being it was already a soundtrack from the '80s, but the way they brought it back and added to it was pretty special, Steffen.
Yeah, it was an interesting project, and it was a really big team because we had so many different people on. Also, kind of in the main credits, it was basically combining the old sound world of Harold from the original movie, then what Hans and Lauren brought onto it, and also Lady Gaga had a role to play in it, not just with the song, but the DNA of the song. Also kind of was woven into the score, kind of little thematic hints of that. And everybody kind of had a role to play in like working in all those different departments of sections of creating that score. So it was really a big team effort of assembling all of that, and while still staying true to the old spirit of the original movie.
The original score has aged really well, right? Because I mean, like sometimes scores you're like, ooh, I don't know if we could do that today. It has aged impeccably, like over the years.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's such the synth scores of that time. They just had there was often such a gift of just really simple motifs that just stick with you. It's basically just like writing a really good, catchy pop song.
Yeah,
but as a film score, and it just that's why we still love going back to all these classic pop songs from the 80s, 60s, 70s as well, that just stay relevant because they never age. It's always a great tune, right? And a great feeling listening to them. So I think that's what Harold was able to do with Top Gun and other stuff he worked on at the time as well.
Steffen, is that how it works? Where like, okay, like I want to be a composer. You got to prove yourself on many levels, but you start off maybe perhaps in a music department. And then maybe you get a show here, or Lauren might say, hey, Steffen, I have this really great project. I think you'd be perfect for it. Is that kind of how it works, Steffen? Is that how you pay your dues? I mean, I know everybody's path is different, but how does that work?
Yes. No, you're totally right. It's definitely, it's one way to go about it. There's the funny thing about this industry is there's no right way to get into it. It's just one of several ways. I mean, some people also just kind of get a lucky break and are connected with a director that has a hit early on in their careers, and they just get pulled along for the ride. And there's super talented folks that just kind of start on their own and kind of just make it big because the stars just align. But for a lot of people, it certainly is the way that you start as a team member for a bigger team, and then work your way up through that. And yeah, in the case of Lauren, you're absolutely right. That's really how it happened. I worked for him in house for a good 6 years.
Wow.
So yeah, it really started from like small, small tasks of doing some arrangements here for this and that, or doing tech work, and then slowly responsibilities would grow, and you would get handed bigger scenes, and eventually projects where you said like, oh, I'm not able to do this, but I think you would be a good fit. And then after a while working for someone, there's trust involved, because that's always what it comes down to. You need to be sure that whoever you hand a project to, you need to be sure they are able to handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's more, to me, it's more than just paying your dues, right? It's what you're learning along those 6 years, right, Stefan? Mm-hmm. It's like, yes. I mean, that's something that no college can do for you. That's something that, I mean, that's like that itself is probably worth, a tuition. And I guess your tuition is putting the 6 years in.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I was lucky to land that job after it was technically still while doing my bachelor's, and I did my bachelor's in music in Germany, and then ended up, how I originally got to LA was doing an exchange year, but then I ended up at the end of that working for Laurence, and which wasn't planned at all. It just kind of fell into place at the end of my original year there, and then that became 6 extra years. But going from kind of out of university into kind of, I mean, we did practical stuff as well. We worked on short films and whatnot, but it's mostly theory. And then working, all of a sudden working at that kind of a level, at Hans's company and working for Lauren, you immediately realize, okay, I know nothing so far. And then you have to very quickly pick up everything you need to know, and kind of, get familiar with the pace you're not going to have to work at. And so at the beginning, obviously, that was a lot of sleepless nights of just kind of figuring things out on the fly, on the go. And it was definitely a wild ride, but it was an incredible learning experience. Absolutely.
It's funny because I'm watching the Lego Batman movie with my daughter, and I didn't know Lauren did that. Like, I know a lot of his work. It got past me. And it's so weird. You're watching this Lego animated movie, and here is this wonderful score. Like, it was like, I don't want to say it's hidden, but people might say, oh, this is a movie for kids or this and that. That score is excellent, no matter what age you are. So it was kind of sneaky the way you look at an animated movie. You're like, okay, this is cute. It's good for kids. But the score is anything but. Like, the score is amazing,
Yeah, no, that was such a fun project to work on, and it's also fun because the movie is so self-aware, right?
Yeah.
It constantly plays with your expectations and what you know of what you want Batman to be and what you've seen him as so far, and then it kind of like turns that on its head and all that. So it was a lot of fun to kind of have those big action cues that are totally commit to how serious the scene wants to be, but then at the right moment, you have that little second of just a great placed joke, and the music can follow along to that as well. So it's super fun. And Lauren obviously had all the experience he needed for that, because he worked with Hans on The Dark Knight and Batman Begins as well, I think. So he had that sound already in his head.
Yeah, he had that down. I have to say, speaking of great sound, you did a terrific job on that Slingshot score, Stefan. It's just a wonderful, wonderful score.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not going to give too much away, but towards the end scene where he's looking out, and I believe it's All the Right Questions is playing in the background, right? Is that the track? Do I have the right track? Towards the end of the movie where he's making a decision whether to walk or not walk out.
Oh yeah. It's basically, it's mostly the end, the main theme. So when you think about the album, the first track, it's the main theme, but All the Right Questions is kind of thematically related to that as well. It's basically just a more emotional variation of that same theme.
Yeah, that whole score is unbelievable. Like, it plays so big, it's so grandiose. Like, again, kind of the same thing with Lauren in the Lego movie. I almost feel like Slingshot was a great movie. Michael did a wonderful job, but almost like this score is like this. I don't know how to explain. Like, I felt the score just really shines in this movie, especially towards that end. Oh man, it's just such a wonderful piece, and the way it just like I had that sound in my head when I was leaving, you know, when the movie was over, just over and over and over again. And it was just,
thank you. Yeah.
yeah.
No, it was a lot of fun working on that. I mean, Mikael is a great and obviously such an experienced director, and collaborating with him on this was such a breeze. It was really amazing. I mean, also, you know, sometimes composers we always get on board for a project as one of the very last people, really towards the end, just before it's getting mixed and all that. And often there's not a whole bunch amount of time to finish something with this. With this, I think it might have been like a good 3 months or so. So it was a nice amount of time to really kind of develop something. And obviously, yeah, it was a great film to have. Even though a lot of it plays in space, but it's much more confined than you would think. A lot of it just plays within that space station they're in. But still, sometimes we have those opportunities to open up with the music and get really big and yeah, full orchestra and all that. So it was a great thing to have that opportunity.
Yeah, and the Titan mission, the main theme, like you mentioned, terrific again. Like it's such a listenable soundtrack, right? So long after the movie's over, I listen to the score over and over and over again. And as a composer, I got to believe that's exactly what you're going for, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm very glad to hear that you enjoyed it that much. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. And I sometimes I get like when there's a piece of music I love, I kind of have it on a loop, and I really, really enjoyed it. So in total, like all the time calculated, how long did it take you to put this together? The whole score?
Probably about 3 months, give or take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said that. Yeah. And you know, it plays like a score that you spent 5 times as much that time. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll never understand. I don't have your music ability or anything close to it, but like I'll never understand how you find that right hook, how you find that right rhythm, how you find that right piece. Like to me, I would go bananas over that. I would never stop tinkering. How do you finally know, Steffen, when you said, all right, I got it, like all the right questions, perfect piece, I got it? How do you walk away? I'm good, I got it. That would be a struggle for me.
Yeah, no, it is a struggle. It's the biggest struggle. It's very hard to walk away from something, and I think in everybody who kind of works in a creative field, there's always at least a little bit of a perfectionist living in all of us. Certainly very much true for me. And I often kind of, I think for the time when I work on something, I realize, okay, I have it in a place where I like it and it works well. And then I try to leave it at that and try to not mess with it too much. But I constantly realize that when I somehow end up revisiting something, older work of mine, let's say something from a year ago or 2 years ago, and listen back again, it's like, oh, now I would change that all the time.
Oh,
you know?
that would mess with my head. You know,
yeah. So you have to. That's part of the work, to just kind of learn to let something go, and not concern yourself. Because if you that's where a deadline comes in handy, because it's just that's your finishing line. No matter what happens, if you better get it right by then, because that's the difference between working on a let's say a personal project, or if I would just do an album without any deadline and I would have all the time in the world, then you take all the time in the world, and that's often not the best thing to do. The deadline is often very, very helpful. And it's always the hardest starting on something new. You know, the fear of the blank page, so to speak. So it's always the hardest to get started with something from scratch and figuring those themes out. I think the main theme was the first thing I wrote for this film, just to kind of get a first thematic idea going, which I like to do anyways, because that's how I get the first conversation going with a director, seeing if we're kind of stylistically on the same page, if this is what he's looking for. And in the case of Slingshot, it was really about finding something that speaks out of the feelings of our main character, Casey Affleck, who is on board the space station on the way to Saturn, the moon Titan. Obviously, a journey that takes many years, and he spends a lot of that time in artificial sleep, and then that messes with his head, and he slowly starts to lose a sense of reality, and he's also thinking back about home and this woman that he left there. So there's a lot of different mixed feelings about the commitment he has for that mission, his professional commitment, but also at the same time his longing and regret. What if? So it's a movie that asks that what if I would have stayed, or I would have done things differently. That a lot of that is kind of about that big question that I can totally relate to as well. There's always something when you look back in life, it's like, oh, what if I would have done that big step in life? What if I would have decided differently there? So yeah, that was basically just the starting point of trying to get a piece of music that would put that into something audible that would transport that.
You really feel for Affleck's character too, because you sense that he definitely regrets. He threw away. I don't want to say throw away. He sacrificed a lot to go where he did, and you almost feel like there's definitely, as he's traveling through space, that there's almost, like you said, almost like this regret, like, oh no, I left this all behind, and it's like his own little personal hell. Like he goes to hibernation, he gets up, then rinse and repeat, and he does it again, and it's just. It reminds me a little bit of the movie, Christopher Nolan's movie with Al Pacino, where it's in Alaska and it's light the whole time. There's never night, and he's just always tired. Insomnia. He's just always tired. David Julian did a great job with that soundtrack, but he's always tired. It reminded me very much of Casey Affleck. He's just always tired, and you can feel that as you're watching it. The only thing I'm angry at, I wish. I saw it on a screener, and I would have loved to seen this on the big screen with your wonderful score pumping out with what I was saying. That's because it wasn't playing near me, but I recommend this movie highly. It's one of the best screeners I've seen in a while. But this thing is definitely a movie that's made for the big screen. I thought. Yes, I agree. Yeah, I'm very happy we were able to have it on a wider release in the US. I think there was in between there were discussions about where it could go, if it goes to something like Netflix or however movies find their home. Rarely nowadays it's meant for movies like this, because it was mostly almost an indie production. There's no big studio involved or anything, so it's great to see films like that also getting a chance to play on big screens and find their audience that way. Yeah, when this movie hits one of those platforms you just mentioned, it's going to take off. Like, people are going to love it. And I don't know, this is definitely a movie people would love to see in the big screen. And it's tough because there's so many obstacles in creating movies, right? Like, it's just I'm very picky with my movies, but had I seen this in the theater, that would have been money well spent, and I would have been totally thrilled with that. How tough is it, Steffen, when you create a score? So I do this. I think I have a really good joke and I'm really clever, but it's like, oh shit, that was a movie I saw 3 weeks ago. That was a line in it, and it's not. So as a composer, do you have the same thing where you maybe listen to something, you're like, oh, that's a really good beat. Wait a second, that sounds like. Do you ever have to battle that? Is this mine, or is this I don't know. I would battle with that if I was a composer. I'm like, oh my god, I just completely ripped off Hans Zimmer. Oh wait, that's Thomas Newman. I don't know. So do you struggle with that? Yeah, that can definitely happen from time to time, where you think you have this brilliant melodic idea or something, or a chord progression, and then you realize, wait a minute, this almost sounds too familiar. Like I've heard this before. This can't possibly be my original idea right now. So I've caught myself thinking that a couple times for sure. But yeah, it's weird. You also wonder who could I send this to confirm my own suspicion, right? You might always have to have a music librarian or an expert at your side at all times, so you could just send it listen, is this proper? Can I use this, or is this has this existed before? Yeah, that's really a good point. How cool is it being a movie fan and watching your music with Casey Affleck towards the end of that movie? Your music is pumping out, and you see Casey Affleck. As a movie fan, how cool is that feeling? Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. That's for me. That would be the whole thing. My last question to you is, I want to ask you about The Awakening. Do you have a release date on that? Because it's got a super cast attached to it, and I know you're doing the score, I think.
Yes, yeah, that's a movie I'm working on right now. It's a British conspiracy thriller.
Yep.
I don't think we have a release date for it yet. It might be early next year, maybe even still end of this year, but we'll see how that turns out. Yeah.
For those listening or watching, that would be Alice Eve, Peter Stormare, who's on the podcast a couple of years ago, and then Julian. What the heck's his name? I just forgot it. There's a terrific cast attached to it.
Yeah, it's a great cast in there.
No timetable attached to that. You said there's nothing. Like how far along are you with the score? Can I ask it that way?
I'm pretty far along. I want to say I'm almost done by now. But yeah, we still have a while. I mean, it's gonna be still some editing involved and some VFX. So they'll take take its time. I can't say too much about that as of now, but yeah, hopefully we'll get an announcement about a release date soon. That would be cool.
Are there other composers that you turn to ask for not help, but like get an idea, try to pick their brain? Is there somebody that like is Lauren available at like, hey Lauren, I want to run this by you? Like, do you have like many colleagues like that in the field?
Yeah, okay. Occasionally, I might bring somebody in for a project or just ask for an opinion. Obviously, first person that always comes to mind is my long-term colleague Max Arouche, who was basically my my longest running teammate the whole time I worked with Lauren. We always worked kind of side to side in house during the time I was there, and also through Lauren did a couple of projects together, like Crawl for Paramount.
That's a terrific movie, by the way. That was great.
That was also a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a great film to work on. Yeah, we did a couple projects since. One that also just came out, a movie called Betrayal. There's a survival thriller set in Scotland, which was really cool. So yeah, he's obviously somebody I'm super close with creatively, and we over the years we developed a shorthand of just working together very efficiently and tackling stuff for Lauren together, working on he worked on that scene, I work on that scene, and so on, and that's how we continued with our own work as well. So he's definitely somebody, if we work together, yeah, we always ping pong ideas back and forth.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to get out there, Steffen? Any future projects, social media, anything you wanted to throw out there?
Yeah, follow along on Instagram and Facebook if you like, and yeah, keep an eye out for Awakening once that announcement hits. Betrayal has just been out. Yeah, I also want to give a shout out to Stockholm Bloodbath, another film that I did with the Mikael Håfström, director of Slingshot, which already came out. It's a Swedish film, but English language. Is a great, really epic medieval set action film. Plays in 1500s Sweden, and had its release in Scandinavia earlier this year, in January. But I think now, from what I've heard, it will also have a US release in theaters and on streaming. I think November 8th.
Nice.
So that'll be another fun one to check out for any genre fans.
I'll leave you with this. So when I interviewed, is it I call him Michael? Is it Mikael? Is that how I should be saying it?
I'm maybe that's my European ear just assuming. Yeah, Michael is totally fine. I mean,
I feel like you're right, and I feel like I was calling him Michael during the interview. Now I feel really bad. I was calling him.
I guarantee you won't be offended by that, because I know he often introduces himself as Michael to other people as well. I'm sure he's used to it because.
So when I talked to him, I said, I got to tell you during the interview, and I said this. I said, that score is amazing. And he was like very appreciative that I noticed that. Like, he seems like a really good, like, it was almost like he was happier for you. I don't know. I got good vibes from his reaction, like as to what kind of person he is.
Oh yeah. No, I think, didn't you send me his interview as well?
I think I did.
Yeah, you might have sent it to me. I definitely watched it. Yeah, I saw that moment. It was super nice. No, he's such a nice guy and super down to earth. It was really, I really enjoy working with him. His editor, Rickard Krantz as well, who was obviously part of the creative process the whole time. Yeah, such a breeze working with them.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, super nice guy.
Steffen, I am looking forward to the future and what your career brings. I'm a big fan, and yeah, Slingshot's a great movie, and your work on this movie and others is just so awesome, and I can't wait to see what the future brings.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful